about what this means. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are parents and families in Florida who have decided, as a family, as parents, along with their doctors, that this health care, gender-affirming care, is the best care for their kids. You may not like it, but you know what? It's none of your, excuse me, goddamn business.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about MSNBC, which is an extremist network, in my opinion, okay? I mean, that network is everything that they claim Fox News is, okay? They sponsor, or put it this way, they condone domestic terrorism against Republicans on this network. They openly condone it, okay? This is what they do. They're an extremist network that is far left, okay? They're for the far left gender agenda. They're for the far left racial agenda. They're for the far left social economic agenda. They're for all of the far left policies that are currently destroying this country, okay? It is probably the most dangerous news channel that we have on television. For as much crap as we give CNN, we should give twice as much or 3 times as much crap to MSNBC in the rhetoric that they spew on a nightly basis on their channel. They sponsor racism against whites. Okay, I'm just saying, I go on and on and on about the problems with MSNBC and why I think that network is probably one of the worst networks on television. Now, I want to react to some more extremism from MSNBC, as you have Chris Haynes, who's going to lose it over Ron DeSantis signing into law a ban on trans kids getting gender-affirming healthcare, aka sex change operations, which is not how MSNBC is going to frame this issue, okay? Because they know that they are extremists on this issue, right? So I want you to pay attention to how he frames this issue, because he's pissed. He's pissed that Ron DeSantis is not allowing children to get gender-affirming care, aka sex change operations, right? So I want to react to it because, again, it really shows you how radical the left is and how they try to justify their radicalism to their ignorant audience, because the people that watch MSNBC clearly are ignorant. And, you know, maybe it's their fault, maybe it's not their fault. But one of the reasons why is because of how these people frame these issues. They don't tell the truth about these issues and what it actually means when you say that Ron DeSantis, or any Republican really, is banning so-called gender-affirming care. So without further ado, let's get into it.
See what sort of reprisals the state wages against that company. But Ron DeSantis' dystopian authoritarian vision is most apparent in the legislation he just signed yesterday. It bans all gender-affirming care for all minors in Florida, everyone 18 and younger. That law also empowers state courts to change custody agreements if a child is receiving or is at risk of receiving gender-affirming care, meaning taking a kid away from a parent.
Yeah. What's controversial about that, right? Anybody with a decent amount of common sense and a base level of morality can say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be allowing kids to get sex change operations, right? But again, that's not the way they're framing this. They're saying gender-affirming care, okay? Because, you know, you have to not tell your audience exactly what Ron DeSantis is banning here. And then you take it a step further and you say, well, parents who are allowing their children to get so-called gender-affirming care, aka sex change operations, right, to cut off their genitals, okay, or, you know, their breast or whatever, yeah, I mean, they should have their child custody rights taken away because clearly they're irresponsible parents. Now, in a sane world, most people agree with this. However, the only reason we're debating about this is because the leftist media, like this guy right here, just flat out either lies to their audience or they don't actually really accurately describe what gender-affirming care is. Again, notice how he does not go into detail about what exactly is gender-affirming care. Because if he went into detail about what gender-affirming care is, right, and what are the risks associated with gender-affirming care and the controversies behind it, maybe, just maybe, his audience wouldn't agree with it. Again, it's just amazing how that works.
Telling parents how they can or cannot raise their own children is among the most authoritarian things a government can do.
Yeah, so again, I wonder if this person who's far left liberal, right, would they say the same thing if I said, well, hey, parents should allow their kids to smoke, right? To smoke marijuana, to drink, to have guns, okay, especially the gun one. Okay, again, imagine this guy's same argument, because he's basically going to argue for universal parents' rights. He's taking the extreme argument here. He's taking what Republicans have argued for, which is parental rights, to not have their kids be indoctrinated in school, to have say-so over their child's education. And we're talking about having reasonable conversations, okay? All this stuff is extended through the pandemic. It's been about parental rights. So what this guy does is that he takes that to the extreme and he says, well, you know what? Parents should have the right to let their kids get sex change operations, right? But again, I wonder would he still go to the extreme if we talked about parents allowing their kids to, again, have guns, to own guns, like not necessarily have a gun in the house or to shoot a gun, but no, parents giving their kids guns to own and to take care of and be responsible for. Do you think he would be okay with that? I don't think he would be okay with that level of parental rights. This guy knows that when Republicans talk about parental rights, we're talking about parental rights for reasonable issues that are up for debate. Like, for example, again, pandemic policies, whether or not kids should be indoctrinated in school, those type of things. But he wants to take it to the extreme, okay, when it comes to this issue right here, and he thinks that he's making a gotcha when he's really not. Because on any other issue, he would not be for this type of extreme parental rights. He thinks he's calling out the Republicans on hypocrisy, but he's actually really outing himself as an extremist.
And now that is exactly what Ron DeSantis and the Republican Party in Florida, and generally the conservative movement that endorses this, are doing purely for ideological and punitive purposes. Now, the sick irony here, the one that I just can't get over and really kind of sticks with me, is that the right-wing movement that gave us this new law signed yesterday is the very same group of people that screamed about parental rights for years amidst the pandemic. I get to say whether my kid wears a mask. I get to say whether my kid gets vaccinated. I get to say whether my kid goes to school.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand. He's comparing parents having the right to tell their kids whether or not they should get their penis cut off, right? To castrate themselves, to parents having a right to determine whether or not their kids should wear masks, okay? When the science indicated that, hey, you know what? Maybe this is not necessary, right? Maybe this is overkill. Okay, maybe masking is, doing things to children that have unintended consequences. Or parents saying, you know what? Maybe school should stay open. I want my child to actually go to school and learn, okay? Or parents saying, hey, I don't think that my kid should be forced to take an experimental vaccine. He's comparing all those things, which are reasonable issues that I think are up for debate, right? To parents being allowed to determine whether or not their child should have their genitalia cut off before they're even old enough to know if that is something that they actually want to do. Again, this guy would never make this argument. He would never make this argument for this type of extreme parental rights if it came to guns, if it came to smoking, if it came to drinking. Or I hope he wouldn't. Maybe he would. I don't know. But I don't think he would make this type of argument. Again, he thinks this is a gotcha. It's not a gotcha. It's not the gotcha he thinks that it is. These guys are cuckoo for Cocoa Puff. They're insane.
And Ron DeSantis was the public face of that movement.
He wants to have the government force kindergartners to wear masks in school. He doesn't believe the parents should have a say in that. He thinks that should be a decision for the government. Well, I can tell you in Florida, the parents are going to be the ones in charge of that decision. Joe Biden suggests that if you don't do lockdown policies, then you should, quote, get out of the way. But let me tell you this. If you're coming after the rights of parents in Florida, I'm standing in your way. I'm not going to let you get away with it.
What a tough guy. You see all that swagger? He's going to stand in your way if you're coming after parental rights. If you try to tell a parent what they can do with their kids. That very same wing of the Republican Party, embodied by Ron DeSantis and the government of the state of Florida, has now demanded and produced a situation in which the government, that guy you saw there with the tough guy swagger about freedom, is going to decide if your child, who lives in your home, that you gave birth to or raised, that you love, your kid, what kind of care they can get.
AKA, yes, Ron DeSantis is telling you as a parent that, yeah, you can't push your child to cut his penis off, right? Again, if Chris Haynes came out here and told the truth and framed it like that and said it like that, do you think that his audience would agree with him? What do you think I mean, I'm just saying, maybe they would. I don't know. Maybe liberals are that deranged, right? Maybe they're that deranged. But do you think that his audience would agree with this? Again, framing is everything in politics. Okay, I'm telling you guys, framing is everything. And the way they're framing this is just not accurate. It's not descriptive. It's the same thing they do with books, right? Oh, Ron DeSantis is banning books. Again, to the person that's uneducated and has no clue what's going on, that sounds terrible. But if he came out here, he said, Ron DeSantis is banning pornography in schools, which is what's actually happening. Do you think that his audience would agree with him? Right? I'm just saying, it's just amazing how they do this. It's just so funny because when you're in the know, you see just how messed up it is. This is how the media frames certain issues. Okay, this guy is pushing for parents to allow their kids to cut their genitalia off. This is how extreme these people are.
He decides. Care that, to be clear, the American Academy of Pediatrics supports and recommends.
Again, a lot of these woke academic institutions or medical institutions know that this is wrong, right? They know that this is not good for children. They know there are unintended consequences, negative consequences of so-called gender-affirming care.
Some of the Dutch researchers gave some data about young adults who had transitioned and reproductive regret. And it's there. And I don't think any of that surprises us. I try to talk about it, but most of the kids are nowhere in any kind of a brain space to really, really, really talk about it in a serious way. That's always bothered me, but we still want the kids to be happier in the moment, right?
Yeah, they're happier in the moment, right? We know that they shouldn't be doing this, or that they're not in the headspace to be able to make a decision about the long-term effects of this and whether or not they want to do it. But hey, they're happy in the moment. That's why we want to push it, because we can make money, right? Capitalism, we can make more money. Again, just imagine making this argument for a parent who wants their child to smoke marijuana. Well, we know that most kids aren't in the headspace to know, about the long-term effects of smoking marijuana, especially on a developing brain. But hey, we want them to be happier in the moment, right? If they get high in the moment, they're happier. Again, that argument, it doesn't work for anything else but this. And this is more extreme than that, right? Again, it's just amazing.
Think about what this means. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are parents and families in Florida who have decided, as a family, as parents, along with their doctors, that this health care, gender-affirming care, is the best care for their kids. You may not like it, but you know what? It's none of your, goddamn business. To me, that is what the courage to be free means.
And they're free to leave, right? If they don't like it, they don't like the state laws that the people in Florida voted for, because they voted for DeSantis, overwhelmingly voted for DeSantis and a Republican legislator. Hey, they can leave. Again, it's funny how Democrats love democracy until Republicans win, right? They love democracy until Republicans win, then they hate democracy, right? They hate democracy. They hate when the will of the people is being done. Amazing.
Freedom means that in my household, our family decides what kind of health care our child does or does not get. Not Ron DeSantis, not the Republican Party.
Yeah, again, there's reasonable things that parents should decide on, and there's unreasonable things that they probably should not be deciding on, right? That society as a whole can say, no, we're not allowing this. This is why we have, child abuse laws, okay? This is why we have child protective services in place, because not every parent is a responsible parent. And when parents aren't responsible, it is the job of the state, aka the representatives that were elected by the people, to step in and say, no, we got to do something about this, right? That's how society works. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm pro parental rights, okay? I mean, I'm almost an absolutist, right? But I realize that, okay, when we're talking about things like this, you can get into extremes where I'm like, nah, there's some parents that just aren't responsible enough to make decisions for kids. Again, I'm for allowing a lot of leeway. But when we get into giving kids drugs, okay, or, kids harming themselves, or parents allowing kids to harm themselves, like what I believe that gender-affirming care is, then, yeah, we got to make some exceptions. But when it comes to other things, hey, I think parental rights is the way to go. And again, I'm almost an absolutist, but I know that when it comes to any issue, right, if you're an absolutist on something, there's going to be problems because extremes are going to test, right, how much you can stick to that absolutism. Probably not a good idea to be an absolutist on anything, really, okay, because there are extremes. Again, I'm pro-parental rights for almost everything. But when it comes to parents allowing children to harm themselves, like to take drugs, or parents giving kids, harmful drugs, or parents harming their children, or allowing children to harm themselves, like, again, what I believe gender-affirming care is, I'm not for that. I don't think that parental rights applies there, because you have parents that clearly are not capable of making reasonable and responsible decisions for their child in those situations.
But that is no longer the case in Florida.
I think this is something that we just made the decision as a state and me as governor to just say, we're protecting kids. And we're going to protect kids when it's popular. We'll protect kids even when you take some incoming as a result of maybe offending some ideologies or some agendas out there. But that's fine. We're happy to do that because this is important.
They're happy to tell you whether you can get an abortion, whether you can give birth or not. Government of Florida, via Ron DeSantis, they made that decision for you. They made the decision about your child's health care. They decided the kind of care your child can receive.
Well, actually, no, the people of the state decided that because this is what they voted for, right? The people of Florida decided that, hey, we're going to vote for Republicans, and everybody knows how Republicans feel about abortion. Again, democracy. Why do you hate democracy? I don't understand. Why do you hate democracy so much?
Ron DeSantis probably knows pretty well, right? What's best for your 13-year-old, the one that lives in your house. Their courts could decide to take that child away from you if you violate their rules, their ideology. As a parent, I cannot think of anything more horrifying or un-American than that. And yet it is going to be the centerpiece of Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign.
Again, it's amazing to me how these people do mental gymnastics and they give dishonest coverage about how they talk about certain issues in order to justify something that is so extreme as to defend children castrating themselves. It doesn't make sense. Again, this shouldn't be a debate. The only reason this is a debate is because you have quite literally the whole mainstream liberal media, which is most of the media, not honestly talking about what it means for a child to get gender-affirming care. They're not framing it in a way that's accurate. They're not bluntly telling people what it is. They're hiding what it is, and then they're pretending that anybody who disagrees with them somehow is against parental rights, somehow is an extremist, somehow is a bigot, somehow is putting trans kids' lives in danger. It's truly amazing stuff. But it's segments like this that tell you why, show you why this is a debate in this country where this shouldn't even be a debate. Because the media doesn't cover it honestly, right? They don't cover it honestly. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.